All right, welcome back. This next story is interesting, but hardly surprising, right? Once considered the golden ticket to a career success, a college degree really doesn't carry the same weight today. Now, according to a recent Indeed Hiring Lab research employer, demand for college degrees was falling. And our new survey reveals workers have mixed feelings about the role of higher education. A survey of 772 professionals in the U.S. with an associate's degree or higher revealed that about half of the respondents from Generation Z, more than any other generation, are skeptical about the value of their degree. And they don't want to pay for it. The Wall Street Journal reports that nearly 2 million student loan borrowers are at risk of docked pay this summer. And roughly 6 million federal student loan borrowers are 90 days or more past due. Now, after a pandemic-era reprieve ended, according to the TransUnion. So I think, I don't know about you, you don't have to be a math major or have a math degree, but this all adds up to a big mess, if you ask me. My next guest will have something to say about it. Please welcome to the show, Mr. Luke Lloyd. Luke, thanks for being on all the way from Covington, Kentucky, back from his little whirlwind tour of New York. Saw you on a lot of different stations. Great job. Always great to have you on the show. We brag about you all the time.
Well, I appreciate you having me every Friday. It's always fun. It's a good way to end the week.
So these kids don't see the value, and now they don't want to pay for it.
Well, isn't that kind of a metaphor for the entire society as it exists? I mean, does
Right?
anyone want to pay for anything nowadays? Actually, the bigger question is, does anybody want to work for anything, right? Not necessarily pay for anything, which you kind of go hand in hand because you need to work to make money to then pay for things. But, I mean, look, there's so many things to think about here. It's like, is it a problem of the colleges being too expensive? Is it a problem of, the students not getting enough value from the college education? Is it that society's eyes has pushed us to do one thing, and then now that everyone's doing it, it's not as valuable? I mean, it's kind of like in this industry. Let's talk about this industry a little bit. Like the CFA, I'm not trying to discredit the CFA because it's a very intense process and takes a lot of work to get, but now it's almost required in the investment world to have a CFA. And now that everyone's getting it, it kind of devalues it because everyone's a CFA. So like my point is, it's the same thing with college education. Everyone has a degree. What's the point of getting a degree? And it kind of was the pathway to the American dream for a very long time, for decades on decades, since the 70s, 80s, 90s, until I'd say really the past 15 or 20 years. It was the ticket to the American dream. You graduate with a good degree, you get a good job, you have a family, you work for 40 years, pack away money in a 401k, and retire with a couple $1,000,000. But now I think the American dream has completely shifted. And I think the entrepreneurial spirit, and even though people don't want to work for as much, younger generations are finding scrappier ways to make money. And then they're learning how to use AI beside them to do all their work for them. So is it the young people aren't as smart, or is it that they're actually just able to use technology to maybe make the world and innovate the world outside of having to work for somebody? There's all these different factors we need to think about.
Yeah, and I really agree with what you just said there. I'm going to add a little bit of sauce to your argument. I think when the government really got into the student loan game, though, too, it changed the value of the education, not in dollar terms, really, per se. But you think about the fact that allowed these universities to jack their course, the price of the university through the roof, because the government was giving guaranteed loans for them to use it to go to schools, right? And in doing so, it kind of really screwed up the landscape because, look, I'm older than you. When I was in school in the 70s and the 80s, it was possible to work and pay your way through college, even a regular state university, right? It's not just a local junior college or the likes, which I'm not saying anything bad about them. I'm just saying they're cheaper. And that now you have no chance of doing that. I mean, even when I was in school, I went to college in the 80s. You had kids that were working their way, they were paying for their own school, working jobs in the summer and during the school year to pay for it. It's just not possible now. And I think that changes the entire landscape. So then what is it? Because if you don't have to work that hard for it, sometimes I think it changes the way you value things.
It absolutely does. I mean, look what happened the past 4 years with the government printing money. I mean, it inflated asset prices. It's the same thing when you print money from the student loans and hand them out for free, which are perceived to be free, even though they're not, and you get stuck with them down the road. It increases the price of education. It's the same exact kind of replication of what's, again, metaphor for the past 4 years of what you're seeing on the overall world and economy. And you take a look at these universities. I mean, like you said, there's no way to pay it forward or be able to pave your way by yourself. You are actually have to, no other way around it, take out loans. I remember my grandpa and parents, talking about how the cost of the education, they could go work a part-time job, like you mentioned, for 365 days out of the year on top of your education, and you're able to pay for it. I mean, my college education itself, when I went just 8 or so years ago, 10, or now I'm thinking about 10 years ago, it was a $40,000 a year before scholarships. I mean, if I didn't
No
have any
way.
scholarships, I would have been $160,000 at least in debt after 4 years. The only reason I was able to go was because I worked my butt off to get scholarships and was valedictorian in high school. Not many people can do that or have the scholarships to do that. And looking back, if I wasn't pushed to go to school and I didn't have scholarships, I probably wouldn't have gone to college because I kind of was skeptical of college even back then. Even though I'm a skeptic as it is right now, I was skeptical back then of the college education. But what it did for me, in my opinion, was not necessarily the education. I had really good professors. I really truly did. I had a lot of really good, really knowledgeable, really smart professors that pushed me. But the most valuable thing I got was leaving my small town to go to another small town, but it opened up my network. It opened up my Rolodex, and I was able to meet some really interesting people that led me to New York City to intern for CNBC. That led me then to Mark Tepper, who was my previous boss in my previous firm. I met him at CNBC. So that kind of pathway for the internship, which the only reason I got that internship was because of a guy who was editor-in-chief of CNBC that went to my school. That is the most valuable thing I got, I think, from college in a lot of ways. And unless you put yourself out there, unless you go into college with that mentality that I need to meet people, you're not going to get that exact networking, that Rolodex that I was able to do just because I was always a talkative person, probably annoying in a lot of ways too.
Well, we love having you on. I'll end with this though too. They've cheapened it too by the fact that they've student loans into student groans, right? They've been letting people off that the responsibility to pay that back, and I can't stand that. I think that's the three most immoral things I've seen in the last 6 or 7 years. That's one of them. This trying to forgive student loans when people like you worked as hard as you did to pay for your loans and pay them off. I mean, I never understood how anybody could be bulldozed into believing that was okay to do. The other one is defund the police, and the other one, ultimately, the most immoral thing ever was an open border. But I think that student loan thing is up there with them.
It's called late stage capitalism. I mean, again, Ray Dalio talks about it in Principles of a Changing World Order. There's a lot of kind of philosophies on how the end game really is. But when you get to late stage capitalism and you have the bailouts we have the amount of stimulus and printing of money that goes on in the economy in the world, you don't respect money. It's not like a depression era like our grandparents and even our parents, Gen X, my parents at least, they kind of were the towards the end of that kind of mentality where you save every dollar you make, you don't kind of risk a lot, and you pack it away like you're supposed to. And that's a very comfortable way of thinking. Now it's like we have a bunch of degenerate people taking on tons of risk, which can pay off, but 99% of people it doesn't pay off for. And you have to learn how to control risk and calculate risk in the world. And that's the biggest thing we're seeing in the world right now is no one respects their hard-earned dollars, and you're seeing that go all the way to the top to big, larger corporations. How does this end? Well, you have debt issues, you have people defaulting, you have no one wanting to pay things back, and then you have a system where you have more takers than givers. And when you have a system more takers than givers, things don't end very well and things implode. And I think we'll see that in my lifetime.
You don't have to be a math major to figure that out, right? That's exactly right. I appreciate you coming on.
I was a math major.
There you go, Luke. Thanks for coming on. Have a great weekend. Luke Lloyd coming to us from